The Cape Crusader goes back to classic roots. Here's your look at the Mattel DC Multiverse, DC Comics Originals Batman. Yes, the Cape Crusader defends Gotham City against the world's most dangerous criminal masterminds. We're going to go start this review with a measurement for Batman and taking it right to the very tips of his cowl, the ears of his cowl, that is. Stopping the tape measure right there to the very top, you're looking at a figure standing 6.9 inches in height. And that, members of the mob, let me switch that over to centimeters for you, the figure stands 17.7 centimeters in height. Now, these were figures I wanted to pick up for a while, but Canada, unfortunately, didn't have anything. They had squat. So the option was either to, of course, source them out on eBay, but even on eBay, the sellers, what were they charging for these pieces? The Joker was going for $50 to $60 just on its own. Luckily for this chap, a good guy, Todd over on Facebook, reached out to me and said basically I could pick these up in local retail stores. Would you be interested? I jumped at the chance. He was nice enough to pick them up for me. And I know he was also in the States, and shipping to Canada was probably a bit of a nightmare for him. So again, a big thank you to Todd on Facebook, who was nice enough to very generously offer the opportunity to pick these up at local Target stores for me, and he was able to get all of them. So we're going to have a look at them in some upcoming reviews. So if everybody can just thank Todd in the comments section, that would be swell. Let's have a look at Batman's accessories. These are all really flashbacks to my childhood because I originally had this figure from Kenner right after the movie was released. In fact, it was one of the few times that going to a movie theater, they actually advertised toys outside. My local cinema, you guys can let me know if you had similar circumstances when you were younger, but my local cinema had like little merchandise shops where you could actually go out and buy the toys after the fact. They had Batman there, and then they also even had for Dick Tracy a lot of the Dick Tracy watches and figures and stuff like that. So it was really cool back in the day. This also happens to be, and make a very short story long, this was also an instance in which when we were going in to see the '89 Batman movie, they were handing out flyers, little pamphlets where you could actually order the figures and then pay by credit card, and they would ship it to your house. The funny thing about it, though, is all the figures and all the vehicles were inflated for the prices that they were actually supposed to be in retail stores. Just ludicrous. But just think that all kind of stuff like that existed when I was younger. The one thing that did also exist is this same grapple gun. This kind of is a larger version of the one that came with the Kenner figure that originally, and I still wish I had that figure. Like all of those figures, I wish I still had those figures. It certainly would have helped for some comparisons here. But the original Batman had a grapple gun that looked very similar to this. Mind you, it wasn't made of rubber. And one of the unfortunate trade-offs of this being rubber is it's extremely bent and warped. It looks also very short and chunky. Primarily the handle looks chunky, and I get for the fact that they had to make it like this so that he would actually be able to hold it. If it was a smaller, more average-sized peg, I think Batman would have not been able to hold it properly. But he does come with it. I will have to just heat it up, I think, and bend it back into place. As you can see, it's pretty much got the consistency of black licorice. It's just very soft, and it just doesn't want to stay in place. It's been warped a little bit in the packaging. Let me show you how it looks in Batman's hand. He can, in theory, hold it in either one of his hands. The thing about the peg, though, is if you put it into his hand, it does involve prying the hand open. This is not something you immediately just pick up the figure, find the hole for the hand, and then fit the gun into place. You do involve actually having to pry the fingers away from themselves so you can actually even hold the grapple gun. So it's just awkward. It doesn't feel like it's made of the right material. I would say it's win from the standpoint, at least it looks like the original Kenner gun, but it's just awkward and cumbersome more than anything else. The other thing that the original Batman did come included with, so happens to also be included with the Mattel release, is this very same Batarang. It's a little bit different, but it's still very, very similar. The shape at least is. And I think there was also even a clip that was on the end there. It does have a long cord to it with a little anchoring plug. And what you can do with the plug is you can just attach it to the end of the grapple gun. Just kind of fit that in place, and it can kind of look as if he wouldn't normally in the movie, of course, be shooting out a batarang. He's had various different things that he shot from the grapple gun, and it really didn't even shoot like this. But I know I'm nitpicking something that really is a Hark throwback to the original Kenner figure. And again, I'm just thrilled for the fact that we get stuff like this. Just pull this off here, and you can actually take the batarang, and you can fit it into his other hand if you wanted to. There is really no other place that I can see. It would be nice if they put a hole or something on his back, or even on his batarang, where you can attach this into place, but that's not the case. So he does have two accessories, very much accessories that we would have had back in the day when these Kenner figures first would have been around, and it's really nice that we get like throwbacks to those initial figures. We'll put those accessories to the side. We'll have a look at the figure itself. Now, I'm doing my best, certainly, to look at a figure like this and not be overly judgmental of it. There are some shortcomings to this figure, and of course, as a reviewer, I'm going to do my best to talk about it, but I'm not going to, like, bog down this review by talking negative after negative after negative. The starting talking points, of course, could be made of more positive nature. It does look like a neat-looking Batman, a good throwback to, like I said, the one that we had gotten from the Kenner line. This body also could have worked quite perfectly for a Michael Keaton Batman, even if they could retool a new head sculpt to give us one that looks a little bit closer to Michael Keaton, still in the same vein as Mattel's traditional looking figures. This would be a little bit more of a difficult feat to accomplish because we're kind of nearing the end of Mattel's lifespan with these figures that they've been producing for the years. I mean, even like when you think about just throwbacks, you talk about how DC superhero line back in the day, how long ago that was, and how long DC Universe figures lasted, and then how long DC Multiverse figures had. So even as much the legacy that this figure is kind of playing keys to, like the original Kenner figures, like there's a rich history for like Mattel producing DC figures just as a whole. I still remember picking up the first wave of DC Universe figures at my local Walmart. That was a long time ago. So it's kind of a sad, somber experience for me to be looking at a figure like this, knowing that we're kind of getting near the end of Mattel's big run, a run that has lasted decades, and still, again, something that sold many of my figures, but there's still a lot of my DC Universe figures that I've kept, and very unlikely would be figures that I ever will want to part ways with. So, like, again, there's a rich history that goes along with these figures, but still, you have to kind of still look at them with a fresh perspective and not simply just look at them with rose-colored glasses. The body looks good. I mean, it does look like the old '89 Batman suit, right down to the Michael Keaton style utility belt. I guess we can start with the head sculpt or work our way down. I'm generally pretty impressed with the body mold, that it does, like I said, look like the traditional '89 Batman. Where there is already kind of a stopping point, a bit of a conflicting opinion here, is the fact that I find his head sculpt, while it is good, I don't think fits this mold whatsoever. The head sculpt looks way too big. In fact, looking at it, I even feel like proportionally these figures have shrunken over time, but I feel like this is even so much a different head sculpt. Like this really belongs on a different figure altogether. The head sculpt is way too big for the body. And it looks swollen and it looks puffy, but it does look like it doesn't fit the proportions for the rest of his body. And that's kind of the one thing that immediately when I got this out of the packaging was kind of the first thing I noticed. Even like looking at it online, it was the first thing I noticed. A very large, oversized head for a body really that doesn't support a proper noodle like that. The head sculpt is decent enough for, like I said, what it is. It represents like the old Kenner Batman, and with that I think it's a fairly successful looking head portrait. The flesh tone has been painted over to the black plastic, and it kind of reads like that as well. It's not the most defined line around the edges of the cowl, and like looking at it, you can kind of see like it needed almost a second coat of paint. It doesn't like... There's areas around like the mouth, for example, that look a little bit darker, and you just know the reasoning for that is because they painted over black plastic All the cowl, all the body, for the most part, is all black plastic. So anything that's really painted over top of it, you really notice it's been painted over top of it. The emblem is good. It's not necessarily the traditional Batman emblem that had the extensions on the tail portion here. It's kind of more of a traditional, it kind of even looks a little bit, not quite, but just a little bit, like the Adam West logo. It's decent enough, and it looks like it's been applied by a label rather than been painted on. Peeling it, it's not simply a case of being able to peel it. It looks like it has been printed on, but it definitely looks like it's not been hand printed. It looks like it's been mechanically printed, if that makes any sense. The utility belts and both the emblems suffer from one big problem, is that they're not dead center. If you look at the line for the abdomen and you run that all the way up to the pectoral muscles, it does look like it should line up, but like everything seems like it's slightly shifted to the side. The emblem itself, you can't even like twist it either. I feel like it just could be just a hair bit over on this side. The utility belt center buckle doesn't even line up to the abdomen. It's way off to the side, and unfortunately the way it's been painted, it looks awfully like caked on and muddy. In areas here you can kind of see how the paint's just bled onto the lower torso. So again, quality can be a bit of an issue when it comes to some of these figures. This Batman just suffers more so from a big head, big noggin, and the fact that both his emblem and the buckle of his utility belt are just shifted over to the side just a little bit too much. I mean, even from a distance, you do notice that it's off, and you feel like you just constantly struggle with the idea that you want to twist this ever so slightly, bring this slightly over to the side, and you can't really do either. One thing I do like is that they added like a sheen to the black plastic down below. When they painted it, they gave it a little bit of a shine to it. Both the gauntlets as well as the little spikes on the side, and of course the boots themselves, all have a shinier paint surface to it. And I like it. It's a bit of separation from the otherwise matte treatment that they've done for the rest of its body. We flip the figure around, and what a breath of fresh air it is to see a cloth cape on these figures. I know for the longest time we've gotten ourselves a plastic capes, and plastic capes work good in the fact that they do look like they have like a natural shape to it. They drape well. Some people don't like the fact that you mix mediums, different materials, and that you have fabric while the rest of the figure is plastic. But this, again, harks back to the original figures that we would have gotten from Kenner. Again, would have had cloth capes. And it just, sometimes it is a refreshing feat to be able to move the cape, sway it back and forth. Plastic capes, you can't pull off such a feat. One thing also that this original Kenner figure, well, this figure was based from the Kenner figure that had, the old figure would have also had a utility belt that you could pull out, kind of a grapple line. You could pull it up, let it go, and Batman would, move up along that line. Obviously, it can't do that. It would have been neat if they had found a way just to take it as something that could be removable. Not that it would have had to actually have a zip line to it, but at the very least something you could detach from the belt, just as a hark back to like the original figure. Let's have a look at this guy's articulation. His head rotates all the way around. Pretty much traditional DC Multiverse articulation. The head hinges up a fair bit, actually. You can have Batman looking up. While he wouldn't necessarily in the movie be able to turn his head, you'd have the traditional Batman, like coined Batman turn. This Batman, at the very least, can rotate his head back and forth, so that is something. He has an upper torso crunch. He does have a waist swivel as well. His arms hinge out, and they hinge out a fair bit also as well, to about there. You can rotate the arms all the way around. He does have a bend at the elbow and a rotation at the bicep. He also has, in addition to that, a rotation in the hand that hinges back and forth. Legs are on a ball joint, something that the older Universe figures would not have had. They would have had that cut where you would, when you hinged the legs out, giving the figures a split like this. Yes, in fact, you would see like a big gap where that cut joint would have worked. I'm glad they actually did go the route of a ball joint, and many of the figures' waves up to this point, there's many waves that have used ball joints. Just a smarter, cleaner look, I think, overall for these figures. Kind of wish that the original Multiverse Universe figures all had that instead of some of the stuff that they were originally using. That's besides the point, though. Swivel on the 3/4, almost full cut thigh swivel right there. He has a double hinge happening on the knee. The boots do not swivel as they are part of the mold for the lower leg. And then he does have a foot articulation that hinges back and forth. Doesn't really have an ankle rocker. I think rocking the ankle too much will likely break it, but it does rock just a little bit. And that's still a little bit more than nothing. As a whole, it's not a bad looking figure. I mean, it's, again, for me, it's a throwback to the original figure that I had growing up. Immediately after the Batman '89 movie came out, I wanted to get like toys. And I don't remember actually getting myself a Joker, but I did manage, however, to get myself the original Batman, and it's still a figure I wish I had to this day. One correction I certainly want to add to final looks here was the original toys in the '89 Batman follow-up toy line wasn't actually produced by Kenner. It was produced by Toy Biz. Toy Biz had done a very short run on the figures, I think consisting really only of Batman, a Joker, and even Bob the Goon. Bob the Goon happened to be a figure that sat on pegs for a very long time. They did also a Batwing and a Batmobile, if I'm not mistaken. Kenner did a follow-up, though, to the line, producing much more movie-accurate figures, where we actually did get ourselves fairly accurate-looking Joker and a Michael Keaton Batman. I think to this day is still figures I would love to add to my collection. So like these figures, the DC Comics originals, are based on the original Toy Biz figure, and that was the figure that I originally had in my collection. An interesting note, though, about the Toy Biz releases of these, Batman had various different head sculpts. I don't know, over the course of manufacturing the figure, that they changed the head portrait, because I remember there was at least 2 or 3 different looks to Batman's cowl. Ultimately, though, the figure that we're looking at right here is an homage to the original Toy Biz Batman figure, not necessarily to the Kenner one, even though Kenner really was still the line that kind of followed off and ran with the rest of the Batman. At least the Keaton Batman films, they followed then suit with the '89 Batman. And then after that, they did, of course, the Batman Returns. And again, just stellar figures across the board. Love to go back and pick those up if I can. The original Toy Biz Batman still was a favorite figure of mine. Kind of really regret that I gave that away. I don't even know if I actually sold it or my mother just gave it away. Just, you know, that's the story of being a kid. When you kind of give up liking a certain line of toys, you just don't really give much invested interest in them. And then whatever happens to them after the fact, whether you just give them away, you throw them out, I don't know what it is, but then you always regret it later on in life. I really regret so much that the fact that I gave up that original Toy Biz Batman. I had so many countless hours of actually just enjoying pulling the zip line from his utility belt and watching Batman zip up to connect back to his utility belt. It's such a great looking figure. This Batman does do a fair service to that original Toy Biz Batman. It does have some problems, a very oversized head being the biggest one, I guess. Misaligned insignia as well as the utility belt just doesn't line perfectly centered. So if you are somebody that looks at your figure and nitpicks like the perfection of having stuff lined properly, looking at this Batman may drive you a bit crazy because, like I said, everything's kind of shifted to the side and it's not dead center. I like the fact that Mattel, near the end of its run, like I said, a very historic run of time when you really think of how many years they've been producing DC figures. Again, it's really sad that they're wrapping up the line, to which would be eventually something that's going to hand off to Todd McFarlane, and we'll see what Todd's able to do with the DC universe moving forward. If you managed to pick up this figure, though, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys actually think of it. Do you think the head's a little too big? Yeah, I do think the head's a little bit too big. Just as a side note, though, I love that artwork that's on the side of the box here. That is artwork. I don't know where it's coming from, whether they actually drew it specifically for the packaging or if it actually comes from a source, but I really like the look of Batman in that. The gray, the different two-tone grays work really well on that. Love to get that just as standalone artwork. But let me know down below, guys, what you guys think of the DC Comics original Batman, whether you picked up the figure for yourself or based on this review and this review alone. Also, big shout out to Todd over on Facebook, who was nice enough once again to contact me and basically just said, hey, you know, do you have these in your local stores? I could check my local Target stores and see if I can pick these up for you. I jumped at the chance. DC Multiverse figures are figures I really would like to review a whole lot more, but unfortunately availability in Canada sucks. So the option is either picking them up on eBay, or if somebody's generous enough that they can actually pick these ones up for me. And don't worry, I paid Todd. And again, a big thank you for him for picking these ones up. We're going to have a look at the Joker And most definitely, we're going to also have a look at the poison ivy in the upcoming reviews. So if this is sort of your thing and you're wishing I could do some more multiverse reviews, you should be happy for the next couple of videos that are going to be coming up onto this channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, though. That's crucial. Make sure as well you turn on that bell notification. That is crucial as well. And more videos will be coming soon to this channel. So thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you guys next time.